In just a few months, our world has been turned upside down and our lives dramatically changed due to COVID-19. I want to offer my deepest sympathies and respect for those people who have lost loved ones or have had their health affected by this disease. I want to thank everyone on the front lines providing their services and risking their own lives for the sake of others. This crisis has the potential to reshape society, and we are now starting to see this in major sectors outside of healthcare. In our attempts to flatten the curve and eradicate this global virus, we have practiced social distancing, home containment, affecting industries like small businesses, transportation, travel, tourism, real estate, service and retail, and restaurants, to name a few. In light of all of this, the national and global financial impacts have left many countless questions regarding the future of the economy. Although much is still unknown, today I give you my 10 tips of how to survive and also thrive during this economic recession caused by COVID-19. Welcome to my Wealth Talk Show, guys, where my goal is to provide you the tips and tools needed for your personal development, finance, wealth building, and of course, real estate. I'm Rick Moreno, and a huge thank you for taking the time today out of your schedule to want to learn. And if you haven't already, please do me a big solid and a favor. Hit the subscribe button and the like button. It lets the internet gods know that what I'm providing is valuable content for our audience today. All right, so let's get right into it, guys. Our title for today is to become like Batman during this economic recession. And the reason why I give this analogy of becoming like Batman is Batman was not an individual or hero or superhero that was limited to just one tool. During this time, this is the opportunity for you guys to want to become more like Batman and establish the little gadgets that will keep you not only surviving during this difficult time, but also make you thrive. So I'm going to give you guys my 10 takeaways or my 10 tips of what I think a person should start implementing right now in 2020 during this economic recession caused by COVID-19. Our 10 tips are going to be broken into these two categories. One of them is going to be real estate and money tips. And the second set of tips are going to be focusing on behavioral and personality tips, things that you need to do within yourself to be able to thrive during this economic recession, guys. All right, the first tip, which is under the real estate and money category, guys, is going to be financing an investment property and making it into a rental cash cow. We all know that the Fed cut interest rates super low, and we assume and think that that's going to then in turn provide us a lower mortgage interest rate. It hasn't been the case specifically, but we are still riding the coattails of a very low interest rate time period. Whereas before, maybe this time last year, I would say more so like in June of 2018, 2019, the interest rates were hovering around in the mid fours, close to fives. Now we're in the threes. So what I think that a person should take advantage of is if you're going to be using some financing, don't just use the financing to buy a primary residence, but for those newbie investors and you may not have all the liquidity or the capital, it is very important that you guys try to take advantage of these low interest rate that the government is pushing out, okay? Because this means that not only financing will be more readily available for people, but it's going to be cheaper to carry that note. And if it's cheaper to carry that note, then in turn you have an increased rate of return or ROI, and that's going to mean very important thing, more cash flow. Cash flow is super important. So if your acquisition or your barrier of entry is going to be less because the interest rate is going to be lower, that means it's going to give you a little bit more margins on the back end to have more cash flow. So now is a great time for those newbie investors or investors that want to jump in to the real estate investment world. This would be a perfect opportunity to not make the excuse because it is cheaper to acquire an investment property than ever before. All right, guys, number two is my second money tip or real estate tip is going to be the acquisition of distressed property by buying it outright cash. You know, major events like COVID-19 have played have allowed us to see huge historical tendencies in the real estate market. But there are some key indicators as to why I feel that there's going to be a great inventory. But with that said, don't get super excited. It is not going to be as in the amount of 2008. And here's why. My idea, if you compare 2008 versus 9/11, 2008, I would compare it to an earthquake. So let's examine what an earthquake does. An earthquake destroys bridges, towns, schools. Everything in its epicenter is destroyed and left in shambles, right? And in 2008, there was a huge economic flaws, financial flaws within our systems. Our mortgage crisis created such a powerful uppercut in the face to the real estate market. And it really cleared up as to why we were having so many structural and foundational flaws within our economic system, okay? So what happens is that earthquake is cause for a great rebuilding mode, okay? It destroys everything in its sight. And that's why I don't think 2008 is comparable to what's going on with COVID-19. COVID-19 is a singular event that causes panic and fear amongst the society, but we didn't have these huge economic flaws that are being exposed on a drastic measure. It would be more compared to 9/11. 9/11, we didn't have these fundamental flaws within our mortgage sector and our real estate sector. In fact, if you compare it, it wouldn't be an earthquake. I would say it would be more like a major blizzard or a snowstorm. And though that snowstorm does impact our economy greatly, because it's a major one, what happens is that once the sun comes out and the snow starts to melt, you immediately can return to work the very next day after that blizzard is over. So though that snowstorm really does impact individuals, 9/11, I still remember, guys, when I was living in New York City and some of my friends were saying, I'll never fly on an airplane ever again, and if you really ask people right now during this COVID-19, granted, there's a lot of fear, but people actually want to get out of their house now. They're getting antsy. Some people aren't even following the social distancing norms. And so what's happening is that we can't wait. We're biting and urging to try to get out of our homes. And so though COVID-19 and 9/11, which I compare them more to each other, they have such a harsh similarity. It is like a major snowstorm. It's impacting our economy greatly. The longer the quarantine process, the longer the snowstorm. But rest assured, guys, there's some positive outcomes from it. Once that snowstorm starts to diminish and the sun comes out, we immediately could go back to work the very next day and start the trend of the upsurge that we really are missing right now. Okay. I'm going to turn into a graphic, guys. I want you guys to understand why we are in a better position now in 2020, even though we're really hurting. Why we're in a better position right now in 2020 than we were in 2008 when the economic crash hit. Okay. Prior to 2008, guys, Americans were in a world of hurt as they were irresponsibly pulling out all of their home equity, and many were using these funds on depreciating assets like cars, jet skis, vacations, plastic surgery for their girlfriends, you name it. The figure was so scary, guys, that it reached a whopping $824 billion just prior to the economic crash. So what that means, guys, is that Americans were pulling out all of their equity, their hard-earned sweat equity that they had built into their loans, and it totaled over $824 billion. That's a scary, scary amount. Now, if you look at the right side, the right side of the graphic here, prior to 2020, when COVID-19 really started swooping across the globe, prior to that amount, you're looking at we had pulled out $232 billion. America got smart, though $232 billion is a huge staggering number. You're looking at close to $600 billion difference in comparison to what we had in 2008. So that's a $600 billion differences. So what does that mean to America today? That means that America now has more equity, guys, into their home. So in fact, 30 to 39% of all Americans have already paid off their home and own it free and clear. They own it free and clear. And up to 50% of all America has a 50% ownership stake into their home. So that is in a great position. That means we as Americans have learned and got smarter, and we no longer are stretched tight on our lifestyle as much as we were back in 2008. What that means is that though we're going to take a hit, and there's going to be some distressed properties and some foreclosure properties available for investors, as stated in tip number 2. It's not going to be to the extent that we had it in 2008, just because America has more money in their pocket in regards to having more equity built into their loan right now at the moment. My third tip on the real estate or money aspect is print out 4 statements, guys. You guys have a lot of time. you or your husband print out 4 credit card statements if you guys have credit cards, or 4 your personal checking and savings statements. And we need to cancel what is needed. Right now, we're going to be focusing on establishing more cash flow into your family's pocket instead of having it go away, especially during this difficult time. If your hours have been cut, if you've been furloughed, or if you've been laid off and now are doing unemployment, this is a huge, important, simple money tip, but it's going to take you some time, but it is effective, okay? So print out 4 statements, guys, and I want you guys to write this down. You're going to highlight with a highlighter these 4 categories. High priority. High priority. What are the items that you and your husband or your family is spending that is very important for you to keep, and you cannot get rid of this expense? So those are the items that you're going to keep, okay? Food, transportation, the basic necessities that are vital for your success as a household to thrive. So that's high priority. Number 2 under that category is going to be stuff that you like to keep. Okay, that you're on the fence, that it's important, that you want to keep it, but if push comes to shove, you may have to get rid of it. So stuff that you like to keep. Okay, and the third one under this is going to be stuff that you could cut. You know for sure that though it's going to impact you, if you cut it, it's going to really increase your overall cash flow for your family. So stuff that you like to cut. And the fourth one would be stuff that absolutely needs to be cut. I would categorize this little line item as, what the heck is this? Why am I spending money on this? So go back and look at your subscriptions. You don't need 5 million subscriptions in Hulu and all these different subscriptions that you may not even know that you're being charged. I would get it down to the bare necessities. You know, if you're using AT&T cable or Spectrum, a lot of that stuff is $80 to $150 for a TV package, guys. Nowadays, you could do a YouTube package or a Disney Channel package, and it's going to be substantially less. Every dollar counts. So print out your 4 statements. You're going to be also surprised. When I did this, guys, and I printed out my 4 statements, I realized that I spend too much money on buying meals. So that has to be cut. Learn to fast. Learn to cook at home. Learn to shop wisely, okay? So those are going to be your things. Print out your 4 statements and then break them down to what is absolutely necessary, stuff that is high priority, stuff that you like to keep, stuff that you could cut, stuff that for sure you know needs to be cut because it's your what the heck is this kind of category. Number 4, guys, is build up your war chest or your cash reserves. If countries around the world are racing to become more liquid, in other words, to have more capital or cash, we should follow that example and figure out a way to become more liquid and have more cash. Cash literally is king during an economic recession. It's going to give you a more opportunity to buy and also take advantage of opportunities that are created because of economic recession. So you need to build up your war chest and just be ready to strike when the opportunity is presented to you. Number 5, guys, this is kind of linked to number 4 that we're just talking about, building up your war chest, guys, is put your all-star team together. A great piece of advice that I learned from my mentor is that you may have $30,000 saved up during an economic crisis. That is great. But let's say an opportunity presents itself where you have a property that is distressed or in shambles, a multifamily, is a fixer-upper, and then it costs $60,000. You have 2 options at that point. You could leverage your $30,000 and acquire a loan, kind of what we're talking about in step number 1, financing an investment rental property. Or if you are smart, you put your all-star team together, you raise capital. That's what big companies do. So why not mirror and monitor as to what big companies do? You could do that as well. So you could get up your, establish your war chest, which is your capital reserves, and collect a team of like-minded people. They don't have to be professional and seasoned investors, but you could get people who maybe has $10,000, $15,000, $5,000, and you could raise your own little mini team to buy that property in that example that we talked about, $60,000 cash, and just establish the rules of the game. You're going to be getting 10%, you're going to be getting 15%, you're going to be getting 30%. As long as you guys are on the same page, you literally could start forming your own investment group because you find like-minded people who have some cash reserves. They may not have all of it, but that is going to allow you to not skip a beat and continue on buying investment property. So put your all-star team together, guys. Use the power of leverage and what I call, you've heard it many times, OPE and OPM. OPM is other people's money. That's your all-star cast. And OPE is other people's energy, okay? I'm going to even add another one that's called OPB, other people's brains. You want to make sure that you're connected with a CPA. A CPA should be on your all-star cast during this time period. a financial advisor, making sure that you don't panic during this unique time and that you're not selling at rock bottom, that he keeps you on his course to try to make sure that you're making the right investment decisions. The third one would be a real estate broker, someone who's a pit bull and understands that this is not a time to panic. This is not a time to be scared. This is not a time to really examine what opportunities are created because of an economic recession and be able to attack because you're ready with your war chest and your all-star team that has built up the capital. The other one would be just an overall guide, a mentor guide, someone who's a guidance, a sounding board during this time period. So raise capital, form your team, and your team consists of, even a contractor. I even think you would have a great contractor, someone who's going to be put you in a position that you're ready to rock and roll. Your CPA, your financial advisor, your real estate broker, a mortgage lender. These are the individuals that are going to get you through those difficult times so that way you could come out thriving. Number 6, guys, is going to be for my landlords. We've been focusing a lot during this COVID-19 pandemic for individuals who cannot afford to pay their rent. Now, let me flip it for those individuals who are out there and do have some rental properties. You guys have been getting gypped with the lack of information. As an investment, as an investor myself who has properties under my belt, I want to make sure that I do not suffer during this time period. That's why I prepared for ahead of time to make sure that I'm getting passive income. Well, with the introduction of these individuals, assuming that rent is no longer due, that has impacted the landlord industry or the investment industry, if you will. So I'm going to give you a great tip. Number 6 is going to be have a rental deferred program for your tenants. This is for landlords now. Have a rental deferred program for your tenants. And this is how I want you guys to break it down under this rental deferred program. Number 1, you got to make sure that you have some empathy for your tenants. Understand that not only you, but they are also going through a tough time. They may have lost their job. They may have been suffering through a reduction of hours. Something must have impacted them, okay? The second thing is that you got to communicate early and often with them. Don't hide from the tenant, because you have to let them know that you're the voice of reason and the sounding board during this tough time. So communicate with them, but at the same time, let them know that rent is still due, that you have bills to pay. There's this unique, it's stupid really, there's this unique misconception around the country that landlords are rich, that every landlord's out to screw the tenant. And it's not the case, guys. A lot of these landlords, I would say the majority of the landlords out there, they may only have one investment property or 2 investment properties, and that investment property, they're covering it with a mortgage. They may not even be cash flowing. They may have had an inherited property and don't have the skill set to really increase their cash flow. So these individuals are really banking in on them receiving the rent. So if you're a landlord out there, you got to communicate, you got to have empathy, but you got to let them know that rent is due. Okay, and you would be surprised, because the assumption to think that your tenants are not going to pay the rent will probably get you into that path that no one's going to give you rent. But if you establish that communication and it's positive with empathy, but you let them know that rent is due, you're probably more than likely going to get the rent. Now, let's talk about the scenario. Someone comes to you and says, Rick or James or whatever, I cannot pay the rent. This is what you need to do. You ask them this powerful question: how much can you pay? Instead of them saying, I can't pay the rent, and you say, okay, well, maybe you could pay me next month. No, you don't let them get away that easily, because you also have to understand that you got bills to pay and property taxes and repairs for their own property that they're living in. So you want to make sure that you ask this question: how much can you pay? And let them give you that amount. Once they give you that amount, let's just give you an example. Let's say we have a property that you're renting for $1,000 a month, and they say, I could only pay $500 this month. Okay, great. Mr. Tenant, we're going to put you on a rental deferred program, and this is the way it's going to work. You're going to give me $500 now. Okay. Next month, we're going to go back, and you're going to go back to your normal $1,000 a month. I'm not going to charge you for the late fee, and I'm not going to charge you the next month the $500 that you owe me, the difference of what you're short on from the previous month. So let's just say May 1st comes around and someone says, I could only pay you $500. You take that $500, and then the next month in June, you're not going to charge them $1,500. You're only going to charge them $1,000. So you may ask, how are we ever going to get our money as landlords back? Okay, the remaining 10 months, then you divide it by the difference. So pretty simple. They owe you $500. I'm going to divide $500 by 10 months, and then I'm going to add it to the remaining months as part of their payback. So May 1st, they pay $500. June 1st, they pay $1,000. They're just paying the normal rent. And then July 1st, then they pay $1,050, and they pay $1,050 for the remainder of all the 10 months. So that gives them some breathing room. They're forced not to feel that pressure of having to pay the remaining $500 immediately in a couple of weeks or the next month. It is spread out without interest, and it gives them a great breathing room. But they have to pay their full month rent the second month, which would be, in this scenario, would be June the 1st, guys. In fact, I even give an opportunity for my tenants to do this twice. But there has to be under that unique circumstance. How much can they pay? And then at that point, they have to agree that it could only be used twice, okay? All right, guys, so those were your real estate and money tips. So let's recap them. Number one, financing investment property. Just because mortgage rates are so low, your cash flow is going to be higher than ever before. So number one is buying property using a mortgage note if you're an investor, okay? Number two is acquiring distressed properties, because there's going to be an inventory that's going to be coming out within the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months or the year, and you make sure that you acquire property via cash, okay? Number three, you're looking at printing out your 4 most recent months of bank statements and cut what is not necessary, keep what is necessary, and you're gonna have more cash flow for your family at the end of the day. Number 4, build up your war chest, your cash reserves, so that way you could be ready when that opportunity strikes. Eliminate spending and stockpile cash during this difficult time. Number 5, put your all-star cast together. Get Kobe, get Michael Jordan, get your all-star cast together. And my all-star cast features a financial advisor. My all-star cast features a CPA, a mortgage lender, a real estate attorney, a contractor. So that way I am around smarter people in their respective industries, and it puts me in a better position to win. Okay. Number 6 is establishing a rent deferred program for the landlords out there who are investors already and they don't want to lose all of their money. Establish a creative plan for your tenants so that they could feel like you're being empathetic, but at the same time, you're getting still some rental income. All right, so let's jump right into the remaining 4 tips, guys. Now, instead of it being a real estate and money section, now we're going to be focusing on behavioral and personal development tips, guys. So number 7, write it down here. Do not let fear and emotion run your buying and spending habits. Do not follow the masses during this crazy time. You know what's upsetting for me, guys? I find it alarming that if a family's used to spending anywhere from $100 to, let's just say, $200 a month on groceries, and all of a sudden now they're spending $300, $400, $500 because they're going crazy trying to rush for toilet paper, hand sanitizer, all the cleaning products. They're stocking their fridge with meat that will last them a whole year if that was the case. Guys, just do your normal thing. If you're used to just spending $100 a month on groceries or $200 a month on groceries, then do that. Go when your food is low and do it. Online shop if that's necessary. You'll be able to get better deals sometimes, but do not go above and follow the masses when you're looking at your buying and spending habits. Do not let fear and emotion run your spending habits. Okay, that's number 7. Number 8, guys, is focus on the things that you can control. What you can control is the following: your mind, your body, your spirit. So right now is the time to reinvest in yourself. Your mind, how do you control your mind? By reading more, learning something. You know, if you're religious, maybe go to church or find that spiritual connection that you need. If you're a meditator, do those things, guys. Your body, making sure that you feed yourself the right food. Stay healthy during this time period. A lot of people I'm really enjoying that everyone's now posting their workout videos, so everyone's becoming a workout fiend. This is your time to control the things that you can control. But what about the things that you can't control? Don't freak out. It lends you back to tip number 7. Don't let fear and emotion run you. Some of you guys are just, all you guys are doing are going on the news and just scrolling left and right all day. And then you're allowing those negative thoughts to invade your time and then your space. So what you can control, guys, you can't control things like, for example, like the lack of toilet paper and you know, don't let that piss you off. Don't let that piss you off. You can't control that. You can't control when businesses are opening up. You can't control when you're going to go back to your job. You can't control when this COVID-19 lockdown is going to end. Those are the things that you can't control. But what you can control is what you do on a daily basis. Are you reading? Are you learning more? Have you established a routine? Are you writing down your goals? Are you getting spiritually connected in some sort of fashion? The things that you can control, you need to double down and go all into that, because that you're making your investment on yourself, guys. Number nine, write it down. Do not waste the crisis. Someone may ask, what do you mean by that? Do not waste the crisis. This is where I bring Batman into it. Thor is a one-trick pony. You have this guy who is muscular. He has his hammer, and when he uses that hammer, he destroys everything in its sight, right? But without the hammer, he's just a normal dude, right? Maybe has muscles, but just a normal dude. That's why I like Batman. His little belt has all these different cool gadgets and whatnot, and he's able to adapt like a chameleon during the tough and trying times. When pressure hits Batman, he's always thinking of what gadget I have in my toolbox to be able to succeed and overcome this unique trying situation. He has a car. He has little things that he throws out because of all the accessories that he's thought of and been creative. What happens is that Batman becomes a lot more valuable than Thor during this crisis. He's able to adapt and adjust accordingly. So right now, guys, do not waste this crisis. Everyone always we talk about I just don't have enough time in the day. Well, that's a load of crap. It's a load of crap because everyone has the same 24 hours. But guess what? Now you have the time and you're complaining about it. So instead of complaining about it, internalize it to yourself. Rick, I'm sucking. Don't waste the crisis. I have the opportunity to become a better parent. I have the opportunity to become more valuable in the workforce. So now I suggest when you write something down for this number 9, don't waste the crisis. Now more than ever, invest in yourself. Double down on yourself. Educate yourself. Learn. Acquire a new skill set. Become ever more financially literate so that way you do not have to suffer during this time. A lot of my clients and former football players and students and whatnot have reached out to me during this time. A lot of them have lost their jobs, and it really hurts me and pains me to hear that, guys. But my suggestion for them is saying, do not find yourself in this situation ever again. When I hear the sad news, when some of my former clients or students or players tell me, I do not want to be in this situation. What can I do so that when something like this happens again, then I'm put into a position where I'm so valuable that people are reaching out to me during this time as a person that they need my services. So acquire new skills, become more valuable in the market space. Instead of saying, I can't wait for the stimulus checks. Everyone's talking about the stimulus checks, and I'm glad everyone's getting that. It's going to be a great help for a lot of people. But I do not want you to take this lightly here, guys. If you are doing everything that is necessary during this time period, you won't have to worry about the stimulus checks. Learn to figure out new creative ways in which you grind and come up with new suggestions on your business. Let's say they cut your business in half, but you have a skill set that you really haven't explored. Now's the time to market that skill set. Now's the time to not be embarrassed and figure out a way to market that skill set. I'll give you a quick example. I have a client who we were going to sell their home. Unfortunately, COVID-19 really hit his line of work pretty hard. And when I went into their house, I noticed that there was a lot of like a wood shop inside. That's not his business. Okay. And I asked him, what is it you do? Oh, it's more of a hobby. Long story short, we're not selling his home just yet because the numbers don't really work out for him. But what happened is that he saw one of my posts online on my investment properties, and he took advantage of his skill set that was pretty much a hobby, and he wanted to monetize his skill set. So he says, Rick, that brick wall, accent wall that you have on that investment property, I think it will look great with one of my barn doors. He created an opportunity for himself. He wasn't going to die during this economic crisis. The saying in Spanish, yo no me muero de hambre. It's a very common saying in the Hispanic culture, like the people they're not going to die during this the tough time. So I gave him the opportunity, and he created such a really cool barn door, and I'm really pumped that now I feel that we could do a lot more business together. He found an opportunity through his skill set and doubled down. So how do I get more money and security? Very simple, guys. Become more valuable in the marketplace. Number 10, guys, is establish a connection and call people, especially for self-employed business owners or people who are in some form of sales or marketing. This is your great, unique moment where you could simply call and check on people to see how they're doing. You're not going to sell them initially on your services, guys. No one wants to hear a cold call during an economic crisis. You're just literally calling and checking up on people. And my phone calls are pretty simple. Hey, how are you doing today? How's your family? You guys staying safe. Sound empathetic. Mean it while you're going through that phone conversation. And then you ask this powerful question that I want you to write down. How can I be of service today during this tough time? How can I help? And really mean it. They may say, you know what, Rick, thank you so much for reaching out. It really means a lot to me. You know, we're actually really prepared. We got everything. We're good. We're straight. And that's good. But I promise you, they're going to remember that you were an individual that was empathetic, that cared, and that was just making the time during this difficult period to understand, basic humanity, right? So what happens when this pandemic is over and the curve is flattened? They're gonna go back to work. The water cooler talk is gonna start happening. Hey, what are you doing? Oh yeah, we're thinking about moving. We just had a baby. Oh, I'm getting divorced. I need to upsize or downsize. And I'm just speaking on behalf of my industry. So what does that do for an individual? They're gonna remember you. They're going to remember that Rick gave that phone call during a tough and difficult time. So this is what you need to be doing. You need to be calling and establishing relationships on a deeper connection, so that way they remember that you were a person that cared for them outside of just your line of work. So establish a connection, connect with as many people as possible, and make sure that you take advantage of the opportunity. So there you have it, guys. These are my 10 tips broken down into 2 categories, from the real estate and money side to the personal and behavioral aspect of things. 10 tips that you could start implementing today so that you thrive in this economic recession. Become more like Batman, guys. Make sure that you become more like Batman and establish those unique values and skill sets, guys. So if you guys like this, make sure that you do me a solid, guys, and hit the subscribe button and share it with everyone else. And I will see you on the next episode, and let's get after it, everyone.